Appreciate that. I did not know I was muted, y'all. I've been talking this entire time. And I got one person that told me that they were muted, that I was muted. I appreciate that. Uh it's been it's it's been a morning, y'all. Again, this is TSA Hoop Show. We're talking about the Bucks versus Pacers. And don't worry, the local stream will play back the audio for y'all. So if you guys didn't hear any of that part, it's still recorded, so we're good. Anyway, Bucks versus Pacers. Damian Lillard is back. He will not be back for game one today. But you have first team All NBA unanimous vote Giannis Antetokounmpo leading this team, a Bucks team that here's one of the most surprising things of this matchup. Okay, so you're looking at a Bucks and a Pacers team that pretty much played with their food all season. I have no idea how they ended up with the fourth seed. They are led by Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, two players which were prominent players in their own right before they got traded to the Pacers and have since been the tip of the spear that Indiana goes with as far as being able to score. Indiana is a very finicky team. They're very efficient at shooting the three ball. Checks notes. Yeah, very efficient at shooting the corner three. Of all the things to be efficient at, that was not a thing that I had these guys slated at. They don't take a lot of them, but they take enough to where it disrupts when you're on a run. And you're the Milwaukee Bucks. It's enough to where it gives enough offense to shift the focus on. It's like, okay, here they go. They're starting their run to come back. And the Pacers have done that enough against other teams to make that an issue. It spreads out your defense a little bit. A Bucks team that doesn't give up a ton of 3-pointers. They don't give they're not too far different as far as field goal percentage, so they defend about the same, opponents scoring about the same pace as they do against the Pacers. So you would think that these two teams would have some counter punches to each other, but those counter punches sit so much between the offensive Pascal and Tyrese and the offense creation of Giannis. And gravity has been the word used a lot with a player like Giannis. It's not something that Indiana has a lot of, but they spread the ball around a lot. They're a highly assist rated team, so they pass the ball really well. So they're counters to each other for this series. You would think that the series would be more of a 2-2. It's 3-1 Bucks. So it explains why the Bucks are much more heavily favored coming into this contest, coming into this massive matchup. It's a game one, so anything can happen. You got to throw the first punch. The question is, do you throw the kitchen sink at it, or do you kind of sit back and wait? I don't think the Bucks can sort of afford to sit back and wait. You're going to see a little bit more desperation out of this team. So, for those of you that are betting the overs as far as points are concerned, a lot of these first games are going to be very point heavy. A lot of these teams that come in here average 120, 122. So if you're getting your 240s, 245s in here, that's understandable if you bet the overs on that. So coming into the series as well, one of the big questions that I had for the Bucks, they tend to not rebound efficiently or rebound as well as a team that has Brook Lopez and Antetokounmpo on the same team. And so you start to wonder if this team, how does this team average 112, 120 against a team like the Indiana Pacers, who uses sort of swarming defense? who has a lot of guards that board, who has a lot of guys that crash the boards, uh, and I what it comes down to is that the Bucks shoot the ball. They're not scoring inside. They shoot the ball really well. So the hope is that as the law of the war of attrition goes on in this type of series, that the monkey off the back for this Doc Rivers led team, a team that should normally be able to rebound well, and that isn't right now, has solved that issue. I believe that if you start to see the rebounding battle being won heavily by the Pacers are going to win this out. I'm going with a popular vote. This series, I have picked the Bucks to win this series. So if you guys are playing playing in the challenge, if you guys are doing your own brackets, that is that's what we picked. We picked the Bucks to win this series. I think that it's going to be a question of who solves their problems first. If if the Pacers can keep up their scoring pace league-wise, if they keep about a 120, 125 pace, I believe that they'll be able to win. However, for a Bucks team that doesn't really need to get to the free throw line a lot in order to win their games, a lot of their volume, again, comes from outside the paint scoring, outside the restricted area scoring, a lot of a good amount of 3-point shots. I don't want to say a lot. They don't shoot the ball heavy in series against the Pacers. They pick their particular shots, and of course, a lot of those games were where Dame was available. So that will change the dynamic of this first game. In this first game only, Dame will be back for game 2. If the Bucks want to go ahead and prove to that the popular pick was correct, they're going to have to win this game by winning the defensive rebound battle, keeping that scoring pace of the Pacers down, and keeping their 3-point percentage, the Bucks, keeping the 3-point percentage efficiency up. Bucks will win it. That's going to be the 10 a.m. game, y'all. Hopefully, we get some y'all mentioning in the comments of who your picks are going to be for today's game. Again, 4 games today. Both of the 5-4 games and both of the 3-6 games are playing today. So if you guys are up and ready for that, cool. Get it in. Moving on. Game 2 today. And this one is all eyes on me because you got the Los Angeles Clippers, who have quietly placed themselves at the 5 seed. I'll say this again. Beginning of the season, Clippers down in the dumps. We were saying, where's Kawhi? Again, we were saying, can this work with just James Harden? It did. From Terrence Mann to Derrick Jones Jr., we had questions, and we were not getting any answers because the media was so focused on the performance of every other team except for this Clippers team. And then game after game, they went on a little win streak early on in the season, somewhere there mid-November, late December. And then again around All-Star break, they started winning again on the back of James Harden. It allowed Kawhi Leonard to do his on-again, off-again routine quietly. And then you had that last game of where, I mean, we saw it, the combination of the loss against the Spurs and then the late overtime miss on the layup, transitioning to a big basket, going through overtime against the Clippers. Talk about Clippers versus Golden State and how the Clippers achieved the 5 seed. They're a 50-win team as well. And they are, I don't know if you guys know this, but they are the best dark horse team to come out of the West, which is a lot to say considering that whom they have in front of them. The player that everyone believes is the best player in the NBA, I for one agree, in Nikola Jokic, a team that is an NBA champion, has NBA champion pedigree. A lot of guys returning back to doing what they do best, which is coming alive in the playoffs, and then PJ and AG. Sorry, getting messages from TSA friends. And again, if you guys are tuning into the TSA Hoop Show, good morning. This is a special Saturday edition since we tip off today. It's difficult to see how the Clippers get past the Nuggets, but here are a couple of ways where they can. Defense, Kawhi Leonard, rebounding. In that order. Defense, Kawhi Leonard, rebounding. So you got a guy in Nikola Jokic that gets other people open. We just talked about gravity and GA. If you didn't see it the term used for any other player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic is the key definition. It should be his picture next to the word gravity. The way that teams have to, unless they have a really big body, unless Ivica Zubac is just hemming up and D'ing up intensely without fouling Nikola Jokic, teams have to collapse and help on Jokic. It's something that the Lakers have been burned on time and time again. It's a reason why a lot of players get open. And notice I haven't mentioned Jamal Murray. That should be saying a lot. You got to guard 5 guys in this series. And I think that if the Clippers are able to guard 5 guys one-on-one, then yes, the Clippers can come out of this series. I have picked the Clippers to come out of this series. But it's going to be a dogfight. If the Nuggets come out of this, it shouldn't be a surprise. But it's going to take at least defending very well 5v5 in order for the Clippers to win this series. Nuggets on the tiebreaker on this. And that should be enough said, except we haven't mentioned enough about Kawhi Leonard and his effectiveness from teams when they win. When available, Kawhi Leonard is extremely effective. And so far, not a lot of teams have had an answer. For Kawhi Leonard, not a lot of teams have had an answer for. There he is. There he is. Sorry, y'all. We had to interrupt our scheduled programming. We have a very special guest on this morning. Rick, can you hear me, sir?
JR.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, man normally needs no introduction, but we like to talk back and forth about the Rockets and all things good things Houston. If you guys are tuning into our shows, it's Tuesdays, Rick, or is the Give Back Show?
The Give Back Show is on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then I'm also co-hosting the Thursday Check Down with Joe Carlton on Thursday evenings, also at 7.
You guys need to make sure that you tune into those shows. I listen to them at work because again, I'm on the West Coast.
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're still
so
working.
the timing of everything is like, are you taking your break right now, sir? Because that's a little loud. And I go, well, this is very important. First of all, the first show to give you listeners that just tune into just the hoop show. The first show is about highlighting very I'm trying to think of the word. Groups that give back.
Yes, yes,
To,
they do charity leagues or they do charity events. We try to spotlight both the person who's doing the charity, but also the charity league and the purpose behind the charity. Um, there's so much good that people are doing in fantasy football, whether it's hosting and sponsoring a charity event like the Scott Fish Bowl, which in the last couple of days has been blowing up because of the first wave of invites.
yep.
Um, that charity is a big one.
Yes.
They're hoping to be able to raise about $500,000 this year. So that one's the most recognizable
Of course.
charity, but that has inspired lots of people to also want to give back. And so this gives us a chance to recognize all those cool people and all the cool leagues that they're doing, and events too. And the Scott Fish Bowl also has a 2-day podathon. Hopefully, we'll be able to spotlight that. But there's also a podathon that goes on to support mental health awareness. And we've had a chance to talk to Michael Hauff of the fantasy football face-off team about that particular event. So it's a great opportunity to raise awareness, hopefully get more people involved, and maybe even inspire people to do their own charity league or charity event. So that one's a fun one on Tuesday nights.
Awesome. Um, and sorry, everyone's probably wondering that they're tuning in. Why did he bring Rick on to talk about charities? It's not that
No, 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 no.
we want to
Charity's
make
a good
sure
thing,
to
but
get
no,
the
we're talking basketball.
yeah, we want to make sure to get the importance of how big of a community that we have first and foremost, because that is our focus, to be able to build this community and be able to reflect that back out into the sports world, to be able to create that positivity out there.
Yeah,
But
appreciate it.
secondly, yes, playoffs start today, but your team doesn't play until tomorrow. Why?
Tomorrow, and that's going to be a fun game.
Yes.
Um, and I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to do too much, you know, deep diving into the rest of the league. But as a Houstonian and somebody who's followed the Rockets for many years, I pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in my hometown. And also, just as a history, I moved here in 2000 from the San Francisco Bay Area, so I was a big follower of the Warriors. Just as they were getting good, I moved to Houston. But the Warriors have been strong for so long. This is going to be one of those rare instances where the number two is not favored in the series, and that's crazy. But I can understand it. I mean, I think up until this season, one of the games earlier this season, the Rockets had played the Warriors and
Mhm.
lost 10 straight.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so,
It
so I
was
can understand it.
it was absolutely mind dumbfounded. I was dumbfounded because again, we were talking about a Rockets team that had shot up to essentially the top 4 seeds
Yeah.
starting the season out. And for those of you that can't put two and two together, yes, Rick is a Rockets fan. If you cannot see the Stros on his head right there, it's all things Houston. But
Yes,
yeah,
time cheating.
you guys started out so strong, and I said, Ime Udoka's got something going. We Before this Houston Rockets team was created, just taking you guys a little bit back. So this is not last year. This is the beginning of last year. We talked about the heavy amount of guards that are on this team. We talked about where Asar Amin Thompson's going to fit on this team. We didn't understand the dynamic between between your big stars, and I keep Van Vliet and what's his name? He just got a 16 tech. uh,
Oh, Dylan.
yeah, Brooks. Brooks. We didn't understand how that dynamic was going to work,
Yeah.
and let me tell you right now, if you didn't understand how Boston had got to the finals that one time against the Warriors and why Houston is so successful now, look no further than Ime Udoka, who definitely is a Coach of the Year candidate, because we all said, how is this going to work? And a lot of injuries and stuff didn't allow Houston to be able to completely perfect and project how it was going to do. Fast forward to this season. Yeah, 10-game losing streak. And I said, what's going on in Houston? What's going on in Houston?
Yeah.
This,
And I'll be honest, I even, am somewhat skeptical at times during the season. The coach has really been pushing this team to play defense, and they are, one of the top, if not the top defensive team. And that's going to
yep.
be one of the keys of this series is
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they can shut down Curry and whether or not they can, um, you know, defend as hard as they have throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
The other challenge, though, is that while they're a great defensive team, offensively they still struggle, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the other key factor is whether or not they're going to be able to perform on the offensive side well enough to be able to compete against one Warriors team that's also a very good defensive team, but two, one that is going to, with their veteran presence, they're going to, whether or not they're going to be able to, be able to compete night, throughout the series.
And
Um,
I'm pretty sure that you're hoping that this is a sweep by the Rockets, that that you don't have to sit around and wait for 7 games to see
no,
it's going to
yeah,
go out.
that's going to
I,
be a grind.
I think that the hardest thing, if you've been watching basketball for so long, is to not get swept up in popularity. That was my issue. So the reason why the Warriors are in this spot in the first place is because of, and I just mentioned it, 2 games. Okay. So you had the game against San Antonio, of which they just let a team hang around and then lost in overtime on the last second Harrison Barnes shot, which, according to Warriors fans, was not in his bag at all. According to Sacramento fans, it was not in his bag at all. And all of a sudden, he's hitting game-winning three-point shots. And then it happened again, where the Los Angeles Clippers hung around, and the Warriors did not take care of. And I think that's going to be a key difference in between Rockets winning and losing. You guys may not score efficiently a ton, you do score enough when you turn teams over. When the Rockets turn teams over, their ability to turn turnovers into points is high up there. The ability to get out on the break, because again, a lot of these guys are still super young. One of the younger teams being featured here in the playoffs, so that's definitely on their side. Uh, and they take care of business late. They don't let teams really come back on them when they build leads. One of the better teams in winning games when attaining a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter. So that's probably going to be the key difference in between the Rockets and the Warriors. Just being able to use the same mentality that they had throughout the season into going into the playoffs, into the series. Um, Conversely, you are going against one of the baddest shooters in the NBA.
Yeah, yeah, and the game that the Rockets won, they shut Curry down. So,
Yeah.
and that was Amon just going to town on defense. He's a
Yep.
great defensive player, and so hopefully that matchup is duplicated throughout the series.
Hmm.
Hard to believe that Curry's going to have, going to be shut down, over the course of a series, but
Yeah,
that's going to be one of the keys is,
I, I
the defense.
I think that's the tough part. It's like you have to do it for a minimum of 4 games,
Yeah.
and then you still have to account for the fact that the Warriors have their own sort of like most improved player in Brandon Pajemski, who has been known to take over games at times. Buddy Hield, who has had a this sort of renaissance. I don't know what Steve Kerr puts in the water up there in the Bay, but
He's just a great coach too. It's like, maybe the best, him and, I think Pop and him are probably the two top coaches, and
which is funny to say
make
because
the
that's a
most
Pop
out of that.
coach. Yeah, that's I mean, and side note, glad that Greg Popovich is recovered from
Yeah.
he had an incident the other day. He's definitely getting up there in age, so hopefully that he's taking care of his health and everything like that. Shout out to Pop. But yeah, and then there's one player that we try not to mention, we haven't mentioned, but there's a reason why we should. Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, definitely.
I
And
mean,
and by the way, Jimmy Butler, Tomball, Texas.
oh,
He's probably
yes.
about Tomball's about probably about 15, 20 minutes from where I'm at. So was really hoping that we would have gotten a hometown discount, somehow got him on, on the roster because,
There's no room. Who are you guys going to trade away? I
well,
don't
yeah,
think, see, it,
draft picks. You and I have discussed this. I think
yes.
we're plenty young. I think what we need now is a little bit more veteran stability,
Yeah.
and that's why you mentioned, Dylan Brooks as being a key to this. Fred Van
Yep.
Fleet, Van Fleet is important to the Rockets.
NBA
Um,
champion.
yeah,
Hmm.
and, and even the big guy, and that's one of the other areas that I think if the Rockets are going to win, they're going to win based on size. It's as long as I've been a Rocket fan, talking about size has not been one of the the positives of the team, but at least in
Truth.
this series, they're going to be able to play both of the centers at the same time, and that's going to I think create problems for the Warriors.
I think that's the best part about being not just being a Rockets fan currently, but if you're just tuning into like if you haven't tuned in all season to the Rockets, which is fair. Again, as you mentioned, just the success of this team just hasn't really been up there over the past 4 or 5 seasons. They haven't been a laughing stock, I can tell you that much. But it has been hard to root for them. But if you look at the makeup of this team, the type the specific players involved. Again, Dylan Brooks has been in the playoffs before. He knows what it takes to push and get through. Van Vliet is an NBA champion. Granted, that was on a Kawhi Leonard led team, but he was the point guard of that Toronto team, so he
Mhm.
knows what it takes at least to get there. You're talking about Amin Thompson. I mean, you want to talk about a kid be that should always have MIP in his back pocket because of the number of times that he's shown his leap and bound and his ability to just get in there. If there was nothing else to say about the G League Ignite, this is probably one of the biggest success stories are the Thompson twins because those guys are freaks of nature. Okay.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, Alperen Şengün, a guy who spreads the floor well, shoots the ball,
Great
and
vision, great ball movement. He's really, and he's I think more the prototypical center in the NBA right now.
yeah.
I mean, Steven Adams is definitely huge, and
Mhm.
I think he plays some important minutes during the game, but um, yeah, it's yes, Seguin, good. Yeah, and I think I would probably choose Amon Thompson as the MVP for the team,
Ooh,
but I'm also looking out into the future.
okay.
But I think right now, Alpern's probably would be the person named as MVP
Of
based
course.
on this year. Yeah.
Uh, of course. And I think that the way that the Rockets have had to sort of beat teams is sort of this utilizing a lot of PNR, a lot of pick and roll, a lot of high low ball, a lot of using that they'll spread you out at first. And then they'll let Shangun go to work. And as soon as you start to go into drop coverage on those pick and rolls, as soon as you start to try to guard um, the driving players like Thompson is concerned, you're starting to kicking out on the wings, and those threes start to fly. I think that when it all starts with toughness, tenacity, and defense, and I think that's what the Rockets have. I think that youth is on their side, even though the Warriors have, again, a lot of championship pedigree on that team, coach all the way down. I think that this team can be athletic enough to run the Warriors and give them fits. Um,
Yeah.
and
One other advantage that the Rockets have is rebounding. I mean, they get more possessions and more shots up per game than most of their opponents, based
mhm,
not on like the Warriors will be off ball movement, off
mhm,
great passing, but the Rockets get a lot of second chance, third chances. They go hard after the board, and everyone on the team goes hard after the board. And so it's fun to watch. I mean, this team is a really entertaining team. It's going to be an entertaining series. While I think most quote so-called experts are choosing the Warriors to move on, I think this is going to be a fun series. And as a Rocket fan, of course, I want them to win, but you have to play in the playoffs to succeed in the playoffs. And
yes,
so again, this is going to be good groundwork for next and upcoming seasons. So I'm again pretty happy about how it's working out, more so than on my Astros, which are struggling still, but that's okay. We
yes.
got
Sorry, being a Halos fan, it's like good, good. Stay down there for a little bit, okay? We've been
yeah.
losing in the division enough as it is.
Your challenge is you got the Dodgers right next door. It's so hard to have to see
Oh,
all that stuff, day
oh,
after day.
that multi-billion-dollar team. Shout out to
Yeah.
Otani, expecting soon. By the way,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
he's
I'm
got.
I'm excited about the series. I think it's going to be, a really entertaining one. I'm, it will not be a 4-1 or I think most people are predicting a 4-2 series with again, I'm afraid to say that the Warriors are favored, but I think it's going to be a really tough battle, and I think people are going to be very entertained. And if they haven't watched the Rockets, this is going to be a great opportunity to see what this team looks like, as
Absolutely.
opposed to Rocket teams in the past with James Harden pounding the ball out at the 3-point line, looking for phantom calls, and great player. I'm I'm not dissing on James Harden, but
Before we
it's
get you out of here, I got a quick question for you.
yes, sir.
That transition from being a Warriors fan to a Houston fan, was it during the Warriors Houston series back in like 2015, 2016?
Oh no, I moved out here in 2000, and I
Okay.
just and a lot of people, like, gee, how come you changed teams? And
Hmm.
but you're here in the community, you see the newspaper, you see the television coverage, you talk with the other people in the community. I pretty quickly made that transition to being a Houston fan. I was always a Houston Rocket, Houston Astro fan, an Oiler fan. I'm aging myself, but an Oiler fan.
Good.
Um,
Wow.
but it was I even bought season tickets when the Texans started up, and was pretty easy to even go through the painful years of David Carr and the early years of the
Jeez.
Texans. And so it's just so much more fun when you can kind of root for the team that's in your community.
David Carr. I was just thinking Fresno State Bulldog. You should have been really rooting for
Yeah,
him.
I went to Fresno, so I got to see them. You know, and yeah, and in basketball, bringing it back to basketball,
Yep.
during the time I was there, the Fresno State Bulldogs actually had a really good basketball team, coached by a guy named Boyd Grant. They played in an arena called Selland Arena in downtown Fresno. They were one of those teams that nobody wanted to play. Strong defense, a lot of matchup defense.
Mhm.
You know, and they would Rod Higgins was on that team. Bernard Thompson. They had some pretty good teams going against at the time their biggest rival in at least the western half of the United States was the University of Las Vegas Running Rebels,
Running Rebels. Yep.
which was coached by Jerry Tarkanian, who was a Fresno native, I believe. At least I think he coached for a short time early on with the Bulldogs. But there was your perfect, you know, you know, matched teams going against each other. You had the Running Rebels, known for fast-paced offense, a lot of slashing to the basket, and then you had the Fresno State Bulldogs, built on defense, built on ball movement, and slowing the games down. One reason why the teams didn't like playing the Bulldogs is they weren't quite Princeton like with the four corner stalls in every game, but they just really made you work to get your baskets.
West Coast offenses love running. I know because we ran. Yeah. So I've played in two different. Played on both sides of the United States. I've played in California and I've played in Florida. And when I tell you night and day, when I say West Coast ball versus East Coast ball, unless you've lived during that time, you have no idea what I'm talking about. This
Yeah,
is what they used to call as run and gun versus getting down in the trenches, where you eat up all 24 seconds of the clock. And if you play against a team that eats all 24 seconds of the clock, lulling you to sleep, passing the ball, backing you down, and then, okay, we're just going to end on this nice little bloop 2-point shot or a nice little backdoor cut or bloop, whatever. You've been beat up for 24 seconds. And then you have to go back and try to go up against them on the offense. It is the worst feeling in the world. It
it
is.
is painful to play that type of basketball if you want to get out and run. And so Kentucky, if you remember a lot of the Kentucky teams where, I think that, maybe a possession lasted 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Which works in the college. And then D'Antoni decided to bring his 7 seconds or less basketball to Phoenix, and it worked for a little while. Some teams, players, and coaches didn't understand it because we were still stuck in tradition at that time. But if you're, it goes down to, and this is, just to bring it back around to your series, it talks a little bit about the success of both franchises. It's all been keyed on being able to be very efficient with the ball. You can play either way. If you're a high volume shooting team, or if you are very efficient with the ball, or you're very slow and methodical with the ball, you just have to be very efficient with it. Because in an era where teams are averaging 125, 130, every point matters.
Darn tootin'. Yeah. And even, and this is a Daryl Morey contribution to basketball. And, it was changing the game to 3 points. And then I don't want to say not just dunks, but just, shots at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the percentages for those as a way to contribute more scoring was so much more effective than basketball had really been played. And so
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you were seeing there was a rumor, and I don't know if it was true or not, but players would get fines for shooting mid-range jumpers. And the Rockets team, they were either they would want him, the players that come out and take the three, and they would get fined for if their foot was on the 3-point line, which made it, a 2-point shot.
I would understand that for a couple of reasons. Okay, so if you're trying to set up a 3-point shot, one of the things that has been talked about a lot is being aware of your toe on the line. And I
Mhm.
mean, as a basketball player in general, you should be
Yeah.
aware where you're at on the court at all times. That's just the level of professionalism that you should be at that point in time. So not knowing that you set up that shot and you didn't get that toe, a full toe behind the line. It's I think my coach used to say, if you can't see white, it ain't right.
Yeah.
Um, you look, and even if you have to look down and throws your shot or whatever, know that your toe is behind the line.
And that's such a mental thing because, again, the shot 3 inches or 6 inches behind the line is not any harder than the shot with your foot on the line.
No,
So you have to be, court awareness is so important,
absolutely.
especially at the NBA level. Even if you watch, even, and I like to watch a lot of, the women's college games and the women's, now the watch
Hmm.
their games and watch, how much of the shot is, how many of the shooters are able to shoot from, fair distance from beyond the line.
Right.
And, the offense is being now built around swinging that ball out to get to that open three.
Yep.
And you're seeing, much better shooting coming from, that those games. I think, and, it makes that more entertaining. A lot of people complain about, the W and say, oh, gee, it's not good basketball. I don't know. I think it's really good basketball.
I'll tell you right now. I had an old coworker that said, "Oh, you could put the best women's professional basketball team against the worst D1 college men's team, and the D1 college team will absolutely eat up the women's team." And I said, "Stop! Like you're
They
like
probably haven't watched a lot of those worst basketball teams.
whatever fence you think you're building and you're trying to be on the side of, stay on that side because you're not pulling me over. I know that I could not guard Paige Beckers
Oh no, yeah.
even on
Now,
my best day.
and Caitlin, and she's so much stronger now. If you've
Kate,
watched her physically, she's developed even more from last.
that part, the maybe her second year at Iowa, I probably could have said, "All right, I'll just back you down for about if we're going to 10 and we're going by ones, all ones, I have a shooter's chance because then I'll just back you down. Okay. I got the weight on her. But if you have seen Caitlin Clark now, the amount of mass that she has put on, it's very scary. I wasn't really big on her last season
Yeah.
simply because
Oh, look
uh,
at her arms. Look at her. She's been definitely in the gym doing a lot of heavy work right there since, she was getting hit. And that's the one thing I'm a little worried about Paige Beckers. I mean, and I've watched her from, Minnesota high school basketball,
mhm,
and she dominated those games, but they, of course, she wasn't going against as physical of a competition as she was in college. And there were times where physically she looked like she was um being pushed
beat up,
against.
beat up. Yeah.
And that
Those,
will happen in the W, I'm sure. It
yep.
did happen to Caitlin Clark in her first year.
Hmm.
um but again, as someone in Texas and very excited, I happen to know the VP of operations at the Dallas Wings. So I was messaging him before and after the draft, and I know there's a level of excitement of bringing Page buckets to play in Dallas. The perfect person to bring on to any team in the WNBA. It's gonna be a lot of fun,
It is.
and they are already talking about arena sizes. Gee, are they going to play in which arena? Because there's going to be
Huge
the
pool.
same, maybe not quite as big of a bump in attendance as there was with Caitlin Clark.
Right.
but they're very excited, and the Wings were not a good team, so it'll
I
be fun to
mean,
watch.
when they were out there toting Ezzy around for as long as they did, the Dallas Wings, the first half of their season was kind of exciting because she was up there for at least either most improved player or MVP of the league. She was doing numbers, but then the Dallas Wings just sort of fell off a cliff along with
Yeah.
my Sparks. So, so we were where we were,
Yeah,
and
well,
then
the
the
Sparks also lost, a player right away with Cameron
Cameron
Brink,
Brink.
and many reasons to really be a fan of Cameron Brink, but
Eh,
you can't teach size. She's got 6'4", 6'5", so she's
I'm just, you guys, if you think that you can hang in the W, go try out for the W.
no, no, no.
Just go.
Hey, look at Kelsey Plum. You look at the size of her now. She's a linebacker.
And I love her to death ever since she came out and she was on the she started out in the league. She was already, I would call it like a cannonball, a kind.
Yeah,
She's smaller in height, but she was already sort
it
of
was already
solid.
pretty dense. Yeah, she was a
Yeah,
pretty dense player.
and she's she's been taking some punches in the league, and she's been going up against some of the best guards, not just in college but in the league as well. And now that she's over on the Sparks, I love my team. I love my LA teams. I love them.
And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun watching, and again, liking, to watch basketball, and so liking to watch basketball at every level. I mean,
Mhm,
it's fun watching high school. My daughter played high school, wasn't quite big enough to be able to make a college go at it,
mhm,
but she played on a team where they played in double overtime in a small private school division.
mhm.
They only had 5 girls. They were that small of a school that they, if one fouled out or one
That's it.
got injured, they
That's
played
it.
four.
I mean,
But she played in a double overtime game in the games that were going to then send the 4 best teams to the state finals, and they played double overtime against a much bigger school in San Antonio. She had just a monster game. She's 32 points. I think it was 10 assists, 8 rebounds, 7 steals, just went off. And, was consistent behind the three. I think it was 5 of 7 from the three line. And she was, as I said, a small girl. She was 5'4", 5'5", and if she weighed 100 pounds, she probably was carrying stuff in her pockets to do it. She was a tiny girl, but super fast, very long. Played with both hands. You know,
you had a little Spud Webb on there.
she was a fun player to watch. But anyway, that's the again, Paige at a 6 foot is almost that type of physical build. She's going to have to, get stronger.
Mhm.
She's already had knee injuries in the past. But you look at her physically, she's going to go up against a lot bigger girls in
Yep.
the W, and
Yep.
she's going to have to do it. Bringing it back to the Houston area, there was, this is, the kind of thing we're kind of excited about is, we had the Comets, and so Cheryl Swoops, and
Cheryl Swoops.
we had some really good teams back then too. Hopefully we'll be able to, get another, team. I
I
just like
hope so.
basketball.
I hope so because I was there for those Sparks versus Comets series. Okay, my first ever professional basketball game that I witnessed in person was at the GWF, uh, Sacramento Monarchs versus the LA Sparks.
Yeah.
So that's how far back I go with the league.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a few years on you, but again, only as a watcher, not as a player. I still play a little bit, but it's you know, and I'll tell you, this ages myself. I was playing pickup ball in California, and there was a guy that was limping on the court. He came on and was playing, and no one else recognized him. But of course, as an old Warrior fan, Fritz Williams, um, he played, boy, probably in the 70s, I'm guessing. But he had, of course, his knee blown out, but was still able to. And there was this guy came in. He was wearing sunglasses. He thought he was like
The hot
that
stuff.
guy. He thought he was good stuff.
Hmm.
Anyway, so his nickname was Cool Breeze with the sunglasses on. And we tell him, you better stay on that guy. Just whatever you do, just stay on that guy because he could shoot from anywhere. He crossed the half court line, and if you weren't already starting to pick him up at the half court line, he was going to shoot on you. And so, and it was funny because after the first game, we looked over him and says, "I told you you have to guard that guy. That's Fritz Williams, played in the NBA for the
NBA.
Warriors." And yeah, so I think his real name was Ron, but I think he went by Fritz Williams, I think, at the time. So
Man, that's crazy. That's awesome. Well,
no, yeah, I appreciate you letting me come on the show and at least talk about the one series that means something to me. I guess it was good.
absolutely.
There was some good basketball last night. I think Memphis crushed.
Yeah, Memphis crushed Dallas. I mean, they put them out of their misery, but you had a 40 piece from Anthony Davis. So
Yeah.
that
But
was
didn't he limp off though? I
he did.
saw something who
He
got
did.
hurt, and
He did.
they showed a picture of the general manager in the stands,
Nico.
and he was looking like, oh,
And I don't know if Nico can see if the light is on when a camera is focused towards his direction, because the shot is actually from baseline going up into about the third or fourth row. So that's where Nico's sitting at.
yeah. He had to know he was going to be shown.
I think that
You think he's long for the world?
I think he's actually pretty good. I think that whatever is happening, we talked about it before. The suspicion that Dallas is trying to move to Las Vegas or trying to get their sports betting complex going. I think that whatever they're doing as a collective group, whatever the ownership wants to do, I think that Nico is being put in a position to do what they want him to do right now, and it's
Yeah.
not being focused on basketball.
Yeah, because you're right. I thought he was a really sharp basketball mind, and then to make that trade.
Yeah, he made that trade, and so we're gonna be. I mean, we're gonna be talking about the Dallas Wings and fire Nico Harrison for the next like 3 or 4 months. That's gonna be the Dallas conversation.
Yeah. But and again, the Lakers look really solid going into the playoffs. So
We're gonna We're gonna try and get into that a little bit as well. Have some notes on that. We're probably gonna get into that a little bit later, but in the meantime, appreciate you coming on, man.
I do
It's it,
appreciate you letting me come in and share this with you. And I've and folks who are watching, and especially those who aren't, JR is the best basketball commentator that around. I mean, not just I'm not just touting TSA and my own team, but you don't get this level depth, and he drops dimes of knowledge
we
throughout
try.
the show, and he has good people coming on that know a lot more about basketball, that I can even pretend to claim to. So I'm the biggest fan, and I'm hoping that more people get a chance to experience this and learn from you. And again, thanks for having me on. I'll let you
Absolutely.
get back to it and talk real basketball with some other
No,
series that are
this
less
was
important.
this was great. I was just thinking, man, it's gonna be hard because I get you today, and happy Easter, by the
Oh,
way,
happy Easter as well. Thank
because
you.
we won't be able to see each other tomorrow, and then I get JC tomorrow. But JC's game is against mine today. So we're going to be doing the post on that tomorrow. And then we get your game tomorrow. So it's good that we got to it today.
Yeah.
Again, Rick, thanks again for coming on the show. We hope to have you on again because your team's going to be playing for at least one round. At least, I think it's going to be at least 6 games. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see you again.
I'll jump at that opportunity to join you, and again, thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Absolutely. We'll see you. Yeah, so we're wrapping up here for a little bit, guys. That is my time for today, for right now. Hopefully you guys got to tune in. I know we're up super early, but it's about my time to do what I normally do, which is go to work. We got other games that go on today. I know that we didn't get to them, but we're gonna have notes. We're gonna throw everything out on X. If you're following us there, don't forget to subscribe, like the show, subscribe to the channel, so that way you guys don't miss anything. Make sure to turn on those notifications. Bucks Pacers to start us out today, followed by Clippers at Nuggets. We talked about that series. We didn't get to a game that you guys should watch. Should be a slugfest today. Pistons at Knicks, and then of course my game coming while I'll be at work. So I got this one to watch the game for me. That Wolves Lakers series, I'm just going to tell you guys right now, Wolves are playing championship level basketball right now. So if you guys think that it's going to be a runaway series, all you Lakers fans out there, make sure that you tune into this series very closely. Minnesota is going to try and work on Austin Reeves, try to get the ball out of his hands, turn him into a turnover machine, force the Lakers into some ISO ball. Just a couple of quick notes. The ability of Rudy Gobert to be able to divert shots is going to be unprecedented, and the Lakers are porous on the interior. So just some quick notes about the game tonight. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. We will be back at our regular scheduled time, 7:30 in the morning. Want to say bye to everyone? Love, peace, and chicken grease, everyone. This is your boy JR. We'll see you again tomorrow. Enjoy the playoffs. Don't forget to add your brackets. Yeah, you want to boop it? 3, 2, 1, boop. Peace.